Hi, I'm Mark Mancini from Vacation Home Mastery and VRBO Outstanding. This week's episode is on smoking remediation and ozone machines, so stay tuned. And welcome back. So this week, we're going to talk about smoking, if someone smokes in your home, how to remediate it with something like this. And first, before we even go into remediation, I want to first go into how do we prevent people from smoking in the home, and then go to remediation. Now, if you want, you can switch right over to that chapter and skip right over this, but I think this is the most important part. Now, this is yet another reason why your cleaners should always go into the home the same day after a cleaning or after a guest departs. So if a guest is departing, let's just say Saturday, and your checkout is 10 a.m., your cleaners should be in there 10:15 that day. They shouldn't be in there 3 or 4 days later. They shouldn't be in there a week later. They shouldn't be in there the day of the next booking. Okay, couple reasons. Suppose they didn't lock the doors. Suppose they left the windows open. Suppose they left a mess in the place and had a party and you didn't realize it. Or most importantly, this episode, suppose they smoked and you have to get that smell out right away. So you never ever want to have your cleaners wait any longer than they have to. They should be in there right after a guest leaves. So that's my hard and fast rule with all of my bookings. I've been doing that for years. There is a reason for it. Now, that's number one. Always have your cleaners in there right away. Number two way to prevent guests from smoking in your home is getting deposits. Now, VRBO gives you an option: accidental damage protection or a deposit. Know the differences. We have a video on that. And that video you need to go to know the differences and what they cover, okay? That deposit is just so much more important. And then also another reason to have a PMS like OwnerRes, which is I'm telling you guys have to get, okay, is that you can take deposits with Airbnb. You can be API integrated with Airbnb, and you can start taking deposits. You get a bunch of other benefits as well. But the key thing is that is the only way you can do deposits legally through Airbnb. Now, what do deposits do? Deposits turn bad guests into good guests because you have their money and you're serious about it. So they will more than likely not go ahead and smoke in your home. So that's a great way to get guests to stop preventing them from smoking in your home. Now, you also want to make sure they're perfectly clear that they cannot smoke in your home. So we always put no smoking in the listing. We always put it in the rules section on the platform. We always put it in the signed rental agreement that we use with DocuSign with OwnerRes that you should be doing, and yes, we have a video on that. And we also put it into their welcome email. When they book and we thank them for booking, we remind them of the rules such as no parties, no smoking, okay? You hit them with it multiple times. This way they cannot say they did not know. Now, another thing that's gonna prevent people from smoking in your home is to have a policy which you really, really need to consider adopting. We have adopted it. I would suggest you do too. Is no smoking on the entire property, which means they cannot go outside and have a cigarette. We don't want them smoking on the property for a couple of reasons. For our other house, Heart of Murata, there's a balcony, there's a pool right outside. The door is right there. I don't care if you're smoking outside. When people open the door to go in and out, that smoke is gonna permeate in to some degree. So we do not want guests smoking there. At the Oasis, it's wide open. If they smoke probably isn't going to go anywhere. But what do people do with their cigarettes? They throw them on the ground. And the last thing I want to do is have a pail for their cigarettes and encourage them smoking. Now, on my first short-term rental in Myrtle Beach, the clientele we had were heavy smokers. We had to have a concrete, like a pot that we put sand in for people to put their cigarette butts that our cleaners had to clean each week. And I'm disgusted by it. So I strongly encourage you come up with a property, no smoking property stance where they can even smoke outside, okay? Now, another thing you can do, and yes, we have a video on this, is a smoking detector. Detectors that will detect if people are smoking, okay? Not a smoke detector, but a smoking detector. They all have monthly fees, or they're billed annually, but they're monthly basically. And that's going to detect if people are smoking. Now, the important thing about those detectors, okay, is that they're objective, not subjective. So if you go to Airbnb, you actually have hard concrete proof that they smoked in your home versus I smelled smoke, I smelled smoking in there, because that's very subjective, and it's not always going to be something that you can get covered. Okay, so and again, finally, reiterating, signed rental agreements. A signed rental agreement is going to ensure that they don't smoke, because in your signed rental agreement, you're going to have in there, because we talked about this in our episode on signed rental agreements, is a penalty for if you smoke in the home. It should be the entire security deposit amount, because it's going to be expensive to run the ozone machines, okay? And you may have to cancel a booking, okay? So definitely signed already, but put in there what your dollar amount is, or a minimum for if people smoke in your home. Okay, that's how we do our best to prevent smoking. And I've done a great job in my homes with preventing smoking, okay? And over 700 bookings, okay, in 3 homes. And you gotta realize our bookings are a minimum of 7 days, okay? So that's a lot of bookings, a lot of extended time. That I think in my Myrtle Beach home, we had 1 instance of smoking inside, and it was actually mostly marijuana, but there was some cigarette smell that we detected. So how do we prevent it? Now, first and foremost, smoke is very subjective, like we just mentioned, okay? Detectors are going to be the proof. When you go to Airbnb's air cover, that you can show them a screenshot, someone was smoking in the home, and they will charge the guest, okay? So I would suggest, if you have an Airbnb booking that does this, this is where you go first, is first go to air cover, not to their deposit. Let it pay out of air cover, because that'll come out of Airbnb's pocket, usually, not the guests, okay? Whereas the deposit comes out of the guests' money, okay? In all my years, I have never used air cover, and I've never used air cover for 2 reasons. Number 1, I get deposits. Number 2 is I go ahead and I get accidental damage protection on all of my bookings. So if they have an accident, I don't charge them. I go after the accidental damage protection. So I've never had to worry about air cover, but again, I hear stories of people have issues with it. You need to have something subjective, and that's where that smoking detector will come into play. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is weed or marijuana. Many states, like Florida here, you can get your medical marijuana card and enjoy it, but you shouldn't be smoking it inside. The good thing about weed, okay, is that you don't need to use an ozone machine. For weed, you really just open up the windows, turn the fans on, and just air it out, and it will go away. And this works really well. You don't really need an ozone machine for this, because guess what? Your teens have been using this method for decades. And that's how you didn't know. They open the window, they throw the fan on, they get their magazines, and they blow it all around out the window, and you didn't know they just smoked a joint in their room, okay, or in the basement. So that's the good news about marijuana, is that it's a lot easier to hide versus smoking. Now, we're going to talk about this puppy and similar things like it, which is an ozone machine. Okay, now many people say you just need to paint. If you paint all the walls, that'll mitigate the smoking smell, and you really don't need an ozone machine, or use it with it. But those people, from what I know and what I've talked to with people who remediate this stuff professionally, that's wrong. Paint is not going to get rid of the smoking smell. There are places like ServPro and others that will suggest that. It's really just to inflate their bill. No need to paint to get rid of smoke, okay? Ozone machines work, all right? Now, professional ones are more better, right? Professional machines, they're bigger. One machine or 2 machines, depending on the size of the house, can take care of everything in a couple hours and make the house smell fresh and new again, okay? Here's the thing, you cannot be home while this is on. Your dogs, nothing living can be in the home because of how it works. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. Now, I want to first talk about the commercial ozone machines, okay? Because this is one you can buy off Amazon. We'll talk about that in a second. But these professional ones, what you want to do is, before you have a smoking situation, call around to Sunbelt and these other places that rent machinery and equipment, And you want to first ask them, do you have ozone machines? What do they cost to rent? And are they different sizes? And are you open on Saturday, which is usually your turnover day? And make sure you have that as your primary plan, okay? Now, if there's none in your area, if you just want to be careful, you can get something like this. I bought this several years ago, so you can't get this exact one on Amazon anymore, but basically you've got the fan that blows, brings it from here and out the other side, and inside it's got a machine that actually has a charge. And here's how ozone machines work. It's not a big mystery. What it does, it gets O2 or oxygen, okay, and it splits the oxygen, all right, and it creates an electrical charge in there, and it creates O3, okay? And the reason why you can't be in the home is because you require O2, not O3. O3 is ozone, okay, like the ozone layer, right? And that ozone will neutralize the smell, okay? So that's why you can't be in the house, and that's all it does. And there's actually technically two types of ozone machines. One uses UV, and another uses electrical charges. Some can use both. The one that uses electrical charges generally works a lot better. And also too, just a side note, there's a lot of AC units and companies that will add a UV protection that kills contaminants in your AC unit, and they're pretty inexpensive, a couple $100 to put in. And it works on a similar concept, although it doesn't create O3, it uses UV to break those particles up, and usually it's for killing bacteria and viruses such as COVID and so forth. So I want you to understand that, you know, this UV stuff does work, but the electrically charged ozone machines definitely are the way to go. Now again, I found this one on Amazon. You're going to want to, I went ahead and bought this, so I had it just in case. I used it a couple times. You might need to get a couple of them to run simultaneously throughout the house if the house is large, because this won't really do a large area. And you probably can't zoom in, it's really not important, but basically it's a timer. You put the timer on, and the maximum is 2 hours, and it'll go for 2 hours. Now what it's going to do, it's going to kick in a minute or two after you turn it on, and then this way it gives you time to leave the home, and it's going to go ahead and start charging up those O2 particles and turning them into O3. And once that's done, hopefully you'll start seeing some differences in smell. But what you never want to do is use a fragrance to mask the smell. People will smell fragrances. Number one, it bothers the snot out of many people. And number two is people know fragrances are there to mask something else, okay? Something happened, all right? Maybe they burnt popcorn, or they cooked Indian food, which I enjoy, but it doesn't really leave a house smelling great, all right? So definitely don't try to use fragrances. Only use an ozone machine. Now, again, I keep this on hand. I got it with my first short-term rental, and it definitely needed to preserve the integrity of the home. So I brought it down to Florida just in case we ever had an issue. Thankfully, we didn't. But even people who smoke cigars can carry that smell in their clothing with them, and that's where you want to have this, because they can just bring the smell into the house. Okay, so another consideration you can do is if you're friends with other hosts in your area, like for instance at Coral Cove where our other rental is. There's 8 homes, and about half of those are rentals. You can go to your neighbors and say, hey, I had a smoking issue. I was going to get an ozone machine to purchase, and if you want, we can go ahead and split the cost of that, and we can use it independently as we need for our home. So this way, rather than you going out and spend a few $100 on an ozone machine, maybe you guys split it up and each pay $50 for the use of it. So that's always something that you want to consider, sharing that cost. Now the final thing I'm going to leave you with is, if a guest smokes in your home, you always want to put that in the review, okay? You want to warn other hosts if someone's a smoker and they're going to smoke in your house, and if they broke your house rules by doing that, okay? So please, please, please share that experience with others so we know about these people who aren't the best of guests. But hopefully, you know, you'll be like me, have several hundred bookings and only had one time it happened. There's always going to be one in several hundred, right? So hopefully you got good guests, because you're getting deposits, you're getting the rental agreements, and all this stems from the use of a PMS, and that's why I built my course, Vacation Home Mastery. And so I'm going to go ahead and put that link here below. Remember, it's $100 off still till the end of this year. It's $197. I guarantee you, that you implement this, you will get direct bookings, you will see an increase in your regular platform bookings, or your money back. I've had dozens of people sign up, hundreds of people actually sign up for this course, and guess what? No one has had to ask for a refund on it because it's guaranteed. They implemented everything in my 12 steps, and guess what? They got results. One person got 3 bookings the next month just by implementing just two of the things. And when they implement the next one, which is the business card feature, when those guests come, they're going to rebook direct. And this is how it's going to help you. You're not going to be relying on those platforms. So hope you enjoyed this week's episode on smoking, how to prevent it, and how to mitigate it. We'll see you again next week. Please hit like, subscribe, and leave any comments or questions down below, and we'll see you again next week.